Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to absolutely dismantle everything you thought you knew about ancient China. If you've always pictured an unchanging, monolithic empire spanning millennia, well, get ready to have that image completely shattered.
To understand how modern China actually came to be, we're journeying through 6 key areas: the myth of ancient China, the late Ming boom, the fall of 1644, the rise of the Qing, the High Qing zenith, and finally, the shifting roles of women.
Section 1. The Myth of Ancient China. Let's kick things off by looking at a super common but frankly pretty misleading idea.
So how old is modern China? Really think about that for a second. When you picture the Great Wall, or when you hear that famous phrase, 5,000 years of civilization, what century actually pops into your head? You know, we tend to view China through this lens of extreme antiquity, assuming its borders, culture, and governance have basically been locked in place since the days of Confucius.
But here's the thing, that monolithic, unchanging ancient China is a complete myth. We're constantly told this story of 5,000 years of unbroken, static civilization. But the reality is a wild ride of shifting borders and massive dynastic collapses. And the craziest part is that the country we recognize today actually has its messy, super dynamic roots forming much, much later, right around the 1550s during the late Ming dynasty.
Chinese history is basically this constant, intense push and pull between two extremes. On one hand, you have playful, mischievous chaos, perfectly symbolized by legendary characters like the Monkey King from Journey to the West. And on the other hand, you have the incredibly rigid, bureaucratic order demanded by emperors. Both of these strands, that deep love for chaotic disruption and the strict reverence for order, they're just completely woven together in the fabric of Chinese society.
Section 2. The late Ming boom. Let's dive into the reality of the Ming dynasty and see how this tug of war actually played out on the ground.
Take Zhu Yuanzhang, for example. Here's a guy with incredibly humble peasant origins who founded the Ming dynasty back in 1368. Because he grew up in severe poverty and lived through massive rebellions, he tried to lock his brand new empire into this incredibly strict, completely unchanging agrarian system.
The sheer scale of his control was just staggering. He demanded that the entire population be strictly registered into hereditary categories. You were either farming, military, craftsmen, or scholars, and that was it. Agriculture was made the absolute, undisputed mainstay of the economy. Taxes? They were paid directly in kind. We're literally talking about bushels of grain and bolts of silk. Plus, he placed severe limitations on travel, commerce, and any kind of foreign interaction. He essentially envisioned this quiet, land-based empire where absolutely everyone stayed in their lane, totally cut off from the rest of the world.
But, human nature and economics usually have other plans. By the 1550s, the southern region of Jiangnan, which was the economic heartland of the empire, basically just ignored all those rules. Instead of sticking to quiet farming, Jiangnan totally broke out. They sparked this incredible economic and manufacturing boom. We're talking about producing porcelains and silks on a near-industrial scale, trading them all over the globe and fueling their massive economy with mountains of Spanish silver pouring in from overseas trade.
And all of this sudden wealth caused massive social blurring. In these incredibly vibrant late Ming urban centers, you'd have merchants, scholars, and peasants all mingling together in the streets. People were buying high fashion, collecting art, and just generally indulging in public leisure. It was an era of super conspicuous consumption, where literally anyone with enough silver could just buy the trappings of scholarly status. Those strict, rigid divisions Zhu Yuanzhang dreamed of, totally washed away by commercial wealth.
Section 3. The fall of 1644. Now, this booming, dynamic, ridiculously wealthy society was about to slam face first into a wall of geopolitical and environmental disasters.
The year 1644 was like an absolute action-packed thriller sequence. I mean, it saw a 276-year-old dynasty completely unravel in just a matter of months. It started in 1642 when devastating floods and famines struck Shaanxi province. Out of all that desperation, a peasant rebel named Li Zicheng marches an army straight toward the capital in early 1644. By mid-1644, the Ming emperor literally commits suicide as the capital falls to the rebels. And then, in a stunning twist later that same year, a Ming general named Wu Songui defects, opens the gates, and Manchu invaders from the north swoop right in to take the palace. Just like that, the entire Ming dynasty is gone.
Section 4. Rise of the Qing.
So, we really have to ask ourselves, how on earth did a nomadic group from beyond the Great Wall suddenly manage to govern this massive, highly complex, and completely broken empire?
Well, the Manchus managed a remarkably smooth transition to power by using this genuinely ingenious setup called the Banner System. Think of it as a hereditary system that divided the population into specific units that handled both military and agricultural duties. But what made it truly brilliant was its dual administration. They literally paired Manchu and Han Chinese administrators together. They marshaled all that Han Chinese bureaucratic expertise to run the day-to-day workings of the empire, all while fiercely guarding their own Manchu political and military superiority.
Section 5. The High King Zenith. This highly strategic dual foundation launched what's known as the High King, which was an era absolutely dominated by three extraordinary emperors.
Over an incredibly stable 130-year stretch, these three men completely transformed the empire. First up, you have the Kangxi Emperor. Ruling from 1661 to 1722, he defeated massive rebellions, sponsored the definitive Chinese dictionary, which was a genius move to win over Han scholars, and he even engaged with Jesuit missionaries. Next was his son, Yang Zheng, who established the Grand Council, this super-tight, secretive advisory body, and he restricted Christianity to really consolidate his domestic power. Finally, the Qianlang Emperor reigned from 1735 to 1796. He oversaw absolutely massive territorial expansion and became a total master of imperial public relations and the arts. Together, these three literally tripled the size of the empire and maxed out its cultural and economic output.
And the thing is, they didn't just rule with armies, they brilliantly managed their public image. Take the Kangxi Emperor's famous Southern inspection tours. These weren't just vacations. These tours were massive, highly choreographed events, specifically designed to project power and legitimize their foreign Manchu rule to the Han population down in the wealthy southern regions. It was just a spectacular display of imperial PR.
Similarly, the Yongzheng Emperor, who remember was Manchu, would very carefully adopt ancient Han Confucian rituals, like the traditional ceremony of plowing the field. By performing these deeply traditional, highly symbolic ceremonies, the Qing emperors were constantly proving to the people that they legitimately held the mandate of heaven, the divine right to rule.
Section 6. Shifting roles of women. Now, we really need to look at how this massive transition from the Ming to the Qing specifically impacted the daily lives of women, because the shift here is profound.
During that late Ming boom we talked about, women actually leveraged the new economy to claim some truly unprecedented social freedoms. They managed household business transactions, they were actively participating in urban consumption, and they became highly visible in the cultural sphere. But then, during the High Qing, the state aggressively pushed back. They deliberately restricted women, promoting these extreme chastity cults and literally awarding official architectural plaques to force women back into rigid, moral household roles. It was all a way for the state to project traditional Confucian values.
So, the absolutely crucial point here is that these strict gender rules weren't just some timeless, ancient tradition that had always existed. No, they were an active, highly anxious political reaction. The Qing state was downright terrified of the chaotic social blurring and the immense new wealth generated by the Ming commercial boom. Restricting women was a highly deliberate way for the new Qing rulers to project an image of moral superiority and forcefully re-establish order against the messy, unpredictable reality of modernizing commerce.
Which brings us to our final, critical thought. The High Qing was, by all accounts, a spectacular success. The territory tripled, the economy boomed, and they maintained peace for over a century. But all of this success, it created an unsustainable demographic time bomb. The population grew so massively that the empire's elasticity stretched to its absolute limit, just trying to feed everyone. So, I'll leave you with this question. What happens when that elasticity finally snaps? How in the world will this massive, severely strained empire survive the violent global collisions waiting for it in the 1800s? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope this completely changes how you view the dynamic, fascinating roots of modern China. Keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.